They say revenge gets you nowhere. Funny, I wasn't planning a trip. I was building a stage. I'm Brandon, 65, retired union president of Local 311. On September 1st, I was chalking lines across Riverside Park, mapping out where the grills would go for our Labor Day picnic. 2 smokers near the oak, 3 folding tables along the path, a kid's corner by the splash pad. The budget sat in my back pocket. $1,982.43 total. $420 for brisket. $289 for buns. $360 for rental tents. $145 for bounce house. $208 for sound system. The rest for ice, chips, and a crate of union-made sodas. The picnic wasn't just hot dogs. It was a promise. We built this and we keep it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. By noon, Max in the sheet metal shop was unloading charcoal. Zoe, our treasurer, was scribbling vendor checks at the tailgate of her pickup. I checked the schedule. 12 o'clock setup, 2:30 kids tug of war. For clock speeches, 5 o'clock music. Then ducked into Union Hall across the street to grab the old banner. The hall smelled the way it always does in September. Coffee, dust, and rain on canvas. That's when I heard her voice. My daughter, Haley. "It closes Tuesday, Tyler," she said, low and brisk in the conference room. "For million wired to the holding company by end of day." I froze. Tyler, my son, his laugh, slick, too sure, slid under the door. Uncle Nick will roll over when we call it a restructuring. Imagine the headlines, modernizing worker assets. Haley again. We're not telling them about the liquidation clause until after the picnic. Dad speaks. We smile. We sell. Everyone wins. Not everyone. I ease backward, heart thudding against my ribs hard enough to leave dents. Our fund, 30 years of dues and grit, was worth more than money. It paid strike benefits, funeral stipends, daycare grants when shifts ran long. I'd promised a welder named Roscoe back in '98 that the fund would never be gutted while a local 311 member could swing a hammer. I'd meant it. Zoe's voice startled me from behind. "Banners in the basement," she said softly, reading my face like a grievance form. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Just bad wiring," I lied and took the stairs 2 at a time. The basement lights hummed on, flickering over a canyon of banker boxes. Violet from Records had labeled them in blue marker. Contracts 1984 to 1999, side letters, benefits. I yanked open a lid, and dust swarmed my nose. I dug until my fingers found what my memory swore existed. A side letter dated December 24th, 1998. My handwriting on the cover note, my brother Nicholas's signature as witness. Clause 7. No sale, encumbrance, or transfer of the Emergency Solidarity Fund without a 2/3 vote of active dues paying members present at a special meeting announced at least 14 days in advance. The ink had bled a little in the corner from a long-ago coffee spill, but the words were iron. If Haley and Tyler thought they could push a paper sale on a holiday weekend and call it modernization, they were walking into concrete. I snapped photos on my phone, front, back, signatures, the notary seal, then slid the original back into the folder like a relic. My hands shook with a cocktail of rage and relief. Rage at betrayal I should have seen coming. Relief at finding a lever big enough to move them. At 3:15, Nicholas texted, "You still want me on my duty Monday?" I typed back, "Come early. We've got a problem." He replied with one word, "Always." I climbed the stairs with the folder under my arm and the old banner slung across my shoulder. On the main floor, the hall was empty, conference room door ajar, chairs still warm, 2 paper coffee cups sweating rings onto the table. I stepped in and saw a printout half tucked in a leather folio. Resolution. Fund restructuring, with Haley's law firm letterhead on top. Buyer listed as Luna Capital Partners, LLC. Closing date, Tuesday after Labor Day. For million to them. 30 years ripped from us. Outside in the park, the grills were smoking. Children were chasing each other with red and blue streamers. I watched my people, their forearms nicked from 1,000 shifts, their laughs loud enough to shake cicadas. and I knew exactly what I had to do. We'd call a special meeting in the middle of a picnic. They wanted spectacle? I'd give them democracy with a sound system. I folded the resolution into my pocket, tucked the side letter against my chest, and turned toward the door, and walked straight into Tyler's shadow. He smiled like a knife. "Looking for something, Dad?" Tyler's shadow fell across the doorway like a warning sign I'd ignored too long. His smile was calm, but his eyes worked over my face in quick, surgical cuts, measuring, probing, guessing. "You look like a man carrying more than a banner," he said, voice soft enough to pass for casual. I brushed past him, pretending to adjust the strap on my shoulder. "Just getting ready for Monday. We're expecting crowd." "Yeah," he replied, falling into step beside me. "A big day for the union." The way he said it made the hair on my neck rise. My grip on the old folder tightened. If he suspected I'd found something, one wrong word could blow my entire advantage before I even had a plan. Out on the grass, Haley was shaking hands with Zoe near the grills, laughing a little too loudly. She spotted Tyler and gave a subtle nod, one of those silent communications you only notice when you're looking for them. I walked a long way around the supply table, my pulse steadying with each step. I'd played this game before, just never with my own children as the opposition. Union negotiations had taught me to keep my cards close until the other side was certain they'd won. Nicholas arrived 10 minutes later in his beat-up pickup, the same truck he'd driven since we were young. He carried 2 coolers and a question in his eyes. "What's the problem?" he asked under his breath as we unloaded ice. "Not here," I muttered. "We talk in the records room tonight." After they had gone, we set up folding chairs, tested the sound system, and pretended nothing was wrong. But every so often, I caught Haley's glance sharp, assessing, like a lawyer reading jury reactions. By late afternoon, the park smelled of charcoal and slow-cooked ribs. Kids ran in and out of the splash pad, shrieking with joy. I stood on the makeshift stage for the mic check, watching my daughter work the crowd, and felt the weight of the folder against my ribs like a holstered weapon. As the sun dipped, Haley called for attention. "Everyone, thank you for joining us to celebrate Labor Day. This year, we're making some exciting changes to secure the future of Local 311. Nicholas froze beside me. I could almost hear the blood in my ears as she used words like streamline, modernize, and realign. Tyler hovered at her shoulder like a bodyguard, scanning faces for dissent. I reached for the mic stand, ready to cut her off, when I caught Nicholas's warning glance. Not yet. Timing mattered. If I played my hand now, it would be our word against hers. So I stood there, smiling just enough for the cameras, letting her talk about responsible stewardship and fresh leadership, all while she moved the pieces toward their Tuesday deadline. When the applause came, polite but uncertain, she stepped away from the mic and leaned close enough for only me to hear. "Don't worry, Dad," she said. "You'll like the new arrangement once you see the numbers." And then, clear as day, Tyler slipped her a manila envelope, the same kind of envelope I'd seen on the conference table. She tucked it into her bag without even looking. That was when I knew the real deal had already been set in motion. And if I didn't act before Tuesday morning, the union fund would be gone forever. That night, the park emptied slowly. Families hauling home folding chairs, teenagers packing up coolers, the bounce house deflating like a tire balloon. Haley and Tyler left together, laughing at some private joke, their silhouettes framed by the streetlights. Nicholas waited until their car turned the corner before speaking. "You gonna tell me what the hell is going on?" We headed into the union hall, the echoes of our footsteps loud in the empty space. In the records room, I pulled out the side letter from 1998 and laid it on the table. His eyes scanned it, jaw tightening with each line. "They can't sell without a 2/3 vote," he said. "That's the law of this local," I replied. "But they're counting on no one knowing it exists. They'll call it restructuring, dress it up with legal talk, and by the time members realize what happened, the money will be gone." Nicholas leaned back in his chair, the old fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, so we showed them the letter at the picnic. I shook my head. Not enough. We need proof they're working with Luna Capital, proof they're doing this for personal gain. If we can show motive in the violation, We kill the deal in front of everyone. He rubbed his chin. Where do we get that proof? I thought about the manila envelope Tyler passed to Haley. It's in her bag. Or her office. Or both. Nicholas gave a slow grin. You thinking what I'm thinking? We didn't have to say it. Tomorrow wasn't just another day of setup. It was reconnaissance. By Monday morning, the park would be alive with union members, kids, retirees, and the press. If we timed it right, we could bring everything to light before the new arrangement even got to a vote. But timing meant risk. If Haley caught even a whiff of what we were doing, she'd move the sale up, close it before the picnic ended. I tucked the side letter back into the folder and locked it in the bottom drawer of my desk. We got one shot at this, Nick. One. And if we miss... The front door of the hall creaked open. Nicholas frowned. You locked that? I nodded. Footsteps echoed on the hardwood. Slow. Deliberate. Then Haley's voice floated from the lobby. Calm. Almost sweet. Dad, we need to talk. Alone. Nicholas and I exchanged a glance. One that said this isn't good. I slid the desk drawer shut, the lock clicking quietly. Haley stepped into the doorway, wearing that lawyer's smile she perfected in court. Evening, Uncle Nick, she said, as if we were all gathered for coffee instead of a confrontation. Haley, Nicholas replied, voice flat. Her eyes flicked between us. Dad, you didn't answer my calls earlier. Thought I'd stop by. We should clear the air before Monday. I leaned back in my chair. Clear the air about what? She took a slow step into the records room, heels tapping against the floor. About changes that need to happen. You've been holding on to this local like it's still 1985. The fund is stagnant. The building is falling apart, and the younger members want progress. Tyler and I could deliver that. I studied her, measuring every word. Progress doesn't mean selling out what we built. Her smile didn't falter, but her tone cooled. You've always been sentimental, Dad. That's why you'll never see the bigger picture. Sometimes you have to give up one thing to save the rest. Nicholas snorted. Funny how saving the rest means putting $4 million into your pockets. Her gaze snapped to him. Careful with accusations, Uncle. I'm an attorney. And I've been through more strikes than you've seen birthdays, he shot back. I know a con when I smell one. She sighed, as if we were children missing the point. Look, Monday's going to happen with or without your blessing. You can either stand with us and look like a visionary, or stand in our way and look like a bitter old man who doesn't know when to step aside. I didn't move, didn't blink. Then I guess I'll be the bitter old man. Something in her eyes hardened, the warmth gone. Fine, she said, turning for the door. But don't say I didn't warn you. When the door shut behind her, Nicholas let out a breath. She's rattled. Maybe, I said, but rattled snakes still bite. We both turned toward the sound of an engine outside. Through the narrow blinds, headlights swept across the wall as a black SUV rolled to a stop. 2 men got out. Neither was Tyler. Both wore dark suits, no ties, moving with purpose toward the hall's entrance. Nicholas muttered, "Those aren't here for the picnic." And then came the pounding on the front door. The pounding rattled the glass in the front door. Nicholas and I stayed still, listening. Union Hall's closed. I called, keeping my voice steady. A deep voice answered. "Mr. Brandon, we need a word. Won't take long." Nicholas shook his head. "That's not a member." Through the blinds, I caught a better look at the mid-40s, built like they'd done security work. Faces expressionless. One had a folder under his arm. The other kept his hands in his coat pockets, which I didn't like one bit. "We can talk Monday," I said, raising my voice just enough. The man with the folder stepped closer. "It's about the fund. We represent Luna Capital Partners." I felt Nicholas stiffen beside me. The one with his hands in his pockets added, "You've been given some wrong information. We're here to clear that up and make you an offer." "I'm not interested," I said. A pause. Then the folder man replied, "You should be, because if this doesn't go through, certain details might come to light. Details you'd rather not see in the papers." Nicholas snorted. Classic muscle. Offer you a carrot, wave a stick. I stepped to the door, but didn't open it. Tell Haley she can send her messengers back where they came from. The folder man gave a thin smile through the glass. We're not her messengers. She's ours. That landed like a brick in my gut. If Luna was pulling the strings, Haley and Tyler weren't masterminds. They were middle players. And middle players are disposable. The man in the coat took one step forward, close enough for me to see the glint of metal in his pocket. Last chance, Mr. Brandon. Talk now, or we'll see you at the picnic. I didn't answer, just let the silence stretch until they finally turned and walked back to the SUV. Nicholas closed the blinds. You believe them? I believe they'll be at the picnic, I said. Which means Monday is not just about exposing Haley and Tyler. It's about keeping Luna from walking off of the fund in broad daylight. We locked up tight and headed out the back. The night air felt heavier than before, like the whole town knew something was coming. Halfway to my truck, Nicholas stopped. Did you leave the light on in your office? I looked up. The blinds were open, and the desk lamp glowed warm against the window. But I'd switched it off before we left. And now, there was a shadow moving inside. Nicholas, and I froze at the sight of that shadow gliding across my office. Whoever it was, they moved like they knew the place. No hesitation. Straight toward my desk. We can't just walk in the front, Nicholas murmured. I nodded toward the side alley. The back door had an old key lock. I never changed, mostly because only a few trusted people had a copy. At least I thought so. We slipped around the building, boots crunching on gravel. The back door was ajar, the metal latch bent like it had been forced with a pry bar. Inside, the hall was silent, except for the faint scrape of paper in my office. I motioned for Nicholas to circle wide through the kitchen entrance while I took the main hall. I stepped into the doorway just as the intruder slid open my bottom desk drawer, the one where I'd locked the 1998 side letter. It wasn't Haley. It wasn't Tyler. It was Violet from Records. She jerked at the sight of me, a stack of old documents clutched in her hands. Brandon, what are you doing here? I cut in. Her eyes darted toward the door. You don't understand. They told me if I didn't get the files, they'd cut my hours, maybe worse. Who? I demanded. Before she could answer, Nicholas stepped in behind her, blocking the exit. You mean Haley and Tyler? She shook her head. No. Luna, they already have people on payroll here. You think the picnic is about speeches? They're planning to sign the transfer before anyone realizes what's missing. Her hands trembled as she set the papers on my desk. They want more than the fund, Brandon. They want the whole building. The weight of it hit me. If Luna took the property, they'd own the hall, the archives, everything the local stood for. Then we need make our move tomorrow, Nicholas said. No waiting for them to slip, force it into the open. Violet looked between us, her face pale. If you do, you'll have to watch your back. Luna doesn't lose gracefully. A car engine roared outside, right under my office window. Headlights flashed across the wall, and a long black sedan pulled up to the curb. 3 men stepped out, none of them Haley or Tyler. One of them was carrying a briefcase, and the other 2 were carrying bolt cutters. The bolt cutters glinted under the street lamp as the men walked with unhurried confidence toward the hall's side entrance. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to take something. Nicholas peeked through the blinds. They know we're inside? Doesn't matter, I said, lowering my voice. We're not giving them what they came for. Violet clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. That briefcase, she whispered. That's probably the transfer paperwork. If they get those signatures tonight, the fund's gone before sunrise. The back door latch was already bent from earlier. One hit with those cutters, and they'd be in. Nicholas's eyes met mine. We could slip out the front. Get to your truck. I shook my head. If we leave, they'll clean out the desk, the archives, everything. We had one advantage, the old maintenance stairwell that led to the attic above the meeting room. From there, we could see the whole floor without being seen. I motioned for Nicholas and Violet to follow. We moved quickly, the creak of the wooden steps masked by the hum of the building's ancient HVAC system. Below us, the sound of metal on metal rang out. One clean snip, then another. The door hinges groaned and footsteps echoed into the hall. From the attic vent, I watched them fan out. One man headed straight for my office, another toward the records room. The one with the briefcase stayed in the middle, scanning the walls like he was checking for cameras. Nicholas leaned close. We could drop down, grab the briefcase, and run. I almost considered it, until the man in my office called out, "It's not here. He must have moved it." The briefcase man's voice was calm. "Then find it. We have until midnight." Violet's breath caught. Midnight? That's when the wire transfer window closes. My mind was racing. We could confront them now, but outnumbered 3-2, for Violet didn't count as backup. It had turned ugly fast. We needed a disruption, something that would force them out without getting us cornered. Nicholas was about to speak when headlights swept across the front windows. A second vehicle pulled up. This time, I recognized the driver, Haley, and she wasn't alone. Tyler was in the passenger seat, holding what looked like my locked desk drawer. My stomach sank at the sight of that drawer in Tyler's hands. The one place I'd hidden the 1998 side letter, and if it wasn't in there now, he'd already seen it. Haley's SUV door slammed, her heels clicking on the pavement as she strode toward the hall. Tyler followed, carrying the drawer like a trophy. The three men inside paused their search when they spotted them through the front glass. From our perch in the attic, I could hear the muffled exchange. "Briefcase man, you got it?" "Tyler, we got something better, proof." "Haley, and leverage." Violet's whisper was tight with panic. "If they have that letter, then Monday's vote means nothing." I finished. "They'll twist it, make it look like it supports their deal." Nicholas shifted beside me. "We can't let them leave here with it." Haley and Tyler stepped inside. The group gathered near the meeting room table, the briefcase snapping open. Tyler set the drawer down, pulling out folders, contracts, and my heart lurched. A plastic sleeve holding the original side letter. Briefcase man slid it inside, tucking it between other documents. Now we're airtight. That was the moment I realized. They weren't just planning to push the deal. They were going to stage member consent, forge signatures if they had to, and present it all before anyone could react. Nicholas's jaw tightened. "We get that case, we end this." Easier said than done. The hall was a chessboard, and they controlled the center. We'd need a diversion strong enough to break their formation. My eyes flicked to the fire alarm panel by the front door. It was old, but it still worked. I looked at Nicholas, then at the panel. He understood immediately. "You pull it." I grabbed the case. Before we could move, Violet's phone buzzed in her purse. Just once, loud in the quiet. Every head below turned upward toward the attic. Briefcase man's voice cut through the air. "They're here." One of the suited men reached into his jacket, and the attic stairs began to creak. Someone was climbing up toward us. The slow, deliberate creak of the attic stairs tightened every muscle in my body. Whoever was coming up wasn't rushing. They were confident. Nicholas crouched low, signaling for Violet to back away from the vent. She pressed herself against the wall, clutching her purse like it could protect her. I moved toward the far side of the attic, just enough to get an angle on the stairwell opening. The dim glow from below outlined a pair of polished black shoes, then the heavy frame of the man with the bolt cutters. He paused halfway, scanning the shadows like he could see through the dust and darkness. "Come on out," he said, voice smooth, almost casual. "No reason to hide. We're all friends here." Nicholas muttered under his breath, "Yeah, and I'm the mayor." The man took another step up. 2 more, and he'd have a clear view of us. I reached into my coat and found a small metal wrench I'd kept since my days in the shop, solid, balanced, just heavy enough to be persuasive. When his head came level with the floorboards, I tossed it across the attic in the opposite direction. It clanged hard against the vent pipe. He turned toward the noise, stepping fully onto the attic floor. That's when Nicholas moved, low and fast, slamming into his midsection. The 2 of them crashed into a pile of old banners, the man's grunt muffled by fabric. I yanked Nicholas back just as the guy swung the cutters like a club. The blade grazed a beam where my head had been a second earlier. From below, Haley's sharp voice rang out. "What's going on up there?" The man barked. "They're here." We bolted for the opposite hatch, the one that opened into the narrow maintenance hallway at the back of the building. Dropping down, we hit the ground running, Violet stumbling behind us. In the meeting room, chairs scraped and boots pounded. They were coming fast. We reached the back exit, only to find the lock hanging broken, the door wide open to the alley, and parked just beyond it, engine idling, was a second black SUV. The driver's window rolled down, and I felt my stomach drop. It was Luna herself. The SUV's interior light caught her face, mid-50s, sharp features, the kind of expression that said she'd never once needed to raise her voice to get what she wanted. Luna Capital's namesake in the flesh. "Mr. Brandon," she said smoothly, as if greeting an old acquaintance. "You've caused quite the delay." Nicholas stepped slightly in front of me. "You send your goons into our hall and you call it delay?" Her eyes flicked to him, then back to me. "You're holding something that doesn't belong to you. The letter. Give it to me now, and we can avoid unpleasantness." "I don't have it," I said, which was technically true. The original was in that briefcase inside. But Luna's gaze narrowed like she could smell the lie on my breath. Violet shifted uncomfortably. Luna noticed, "And you must be Violet, the one who keeps the archives neat. I appreciate efficiency. It's a shame you've chosen the wrong side." From inside the hall came muffled voices, Haley's sharp tone, Tyler's lower rumble, and the deeper commands of the briefcase man. They were moving toward the back door. Luna leaned her elbow on the window frame. "Here's the reality, Mr. Brandon. Monday's picnic will go on. You'll speak, they'll applaud, the documents will be signed, and the fun will finally be in capable hands. Or," her smile deepened, "I leave tonight with that letter, and you're nothing more than a stubborn old man shouting about rules no one cares about." Nicholas bristled, but I caught his arm. "Why come yourself? Seems risky for someone at your level." "Because," she said, glancing toward the hall, "I don't trust lawyers to finish a job. Not even yours." That was when the rear door of the SUV clicked open. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out, carrying a flat, hard-sided case about the size of a briefcase, but heavier. He set it on the ground and flipped the latches. Inside was a portable document scanner and printer. Luna's voice was almost playful. "If the signatures we need won't appear willingly, we'll create them. All we need is a template." Boots pounded closer from inside the hall. The briefcase man emerged with Haley and Tyler right behind him, and in his hand was the side letter. Luna smiled at me over the open case. "Shall we get started?" The sight of that plastic sleeve in the briefcase man's grip tightened my chest like a vice. The original side letter, proof that could kill their deal, was about to be fed into Luna's scanner. Nicholas stepped forward. "You forged that. You're not just breaking union rules. You're breaking the law." Luna didn't even look at him. "The law," she said lightly, "is interpretation, and interpretation belongs to whoever has the loudest voice and the deepest pockets." Haley crossed her arms, her eyes on me. "Dad, this is the last chance you'll get to be part of the solution. Stand down, and you can retire knowing the union's future is secure." "Secure for who?" I shot back. "The members who built it, or the people who carve it up and sell it off?" Her jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. The briefcase man crouched over the portable scanner. He slid the letter from its sleeve with the care of someone who knew exactly what was worth. The scanner hummed to life. Violet leaned toward me and whispered, "If that scan finishes, it's over." I knew it, and standing here arguing wasn't going to stop them. My eyes flicked to the power cord snaking from the scanner to a portable battery pack in the SUV's backseat. Nicholas caught the look. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he muttered. "Yeah," I said, "but we'll only get one shot." As the machine's light bar began to crawl across the first inch of the document, Nicholas shifted toward the SUV, pretending to adjust his jacket. Luna's gaze locked on him instantly. "Don't." Her driver, silent until now, stepped from the front seat and blocked Nicholas's path. Big man, bigger hands. The scanner beeped once, moving on to the next section of the page. I took a step forward, angling toward the battery pack. "You've underestimated one thing, Luna." She raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "That I'm not here alone. From the alley behind us came the sudden roar of an engine and the glare of high beams sweeping over all of us. A battered blue pickup screeched to a stop, Nicholas's truck. But Nicholas was standing right beside me. The driver's door flew open. It was Max from the sheet metal shop, and he was holding a crowbar. Max swung out of the cab like a man who'd been looking for an excuse to use that crowbar all week. "Heard you might need a little help," he called over the engine's rumble. Luna's people reacted fast. The driver stepped toward him, hands raised like he was calming a wild animal. The briefcase man froze mid-scan, glancing between Luna and the approaching truck. Max didn't wait. He jammed the crowbar into the portable battery pack's connector and popped it loose in one hard motion. The scanner's hum choked, lights dimming, the light bar stopping halfway across the side letter. "That's enough," Max said, tossing the cord to the pavement. Luna's polite mask cracked for the first time. "Do you have any idea what you just done?" "Yeah," Max said, "kept you from robbing 300 working families." The driver lunged for him, but Nicholas stepped in, shoving the man back against the SUV with surprising force for someone his age. The briefcase man snatched the letter and tried to retreat toward the hall, but Violet, of all people, darted forward and grabbed his arm. For a second, the whole scene was chaos. Shouts, the clang of the crowbar hitting metal, boots scraping on the pavement. I moved in, reaching for the letter. My fingers brushed the edge of the plastic sleeve, just enough to feel the paper inside, when Haley's voice cut through the noise. "Stop." Everyone froze. She stood a few feet away, a small black pistol in her hands, pointed at me. Tyler's voice was low, urgent. "Haley!" "Shut up," she snapped. "Dad, give me the letter. Now, before this gets worse." The night felt suddenly colder. I could hear my own breathing, steady but slow. "You'd point a gun at your own father?" Her eyes didn't waver. "You're the one standing in the way of our future." Max shifted his weight. The crowbar angled low, waiting for a moment. Nicholas's fists clenched at his sides. Luna's voice was almost amused now. "Well, Mr. Brandon, what's it going to be?" I took one slow step toward Haley, my hand still on the sleeve. That's when a new sound cut through everything. The high-pitched wail of sirens, growing louder, fast. And then red and blue lights flooded the alley. The flashing lights painted the brick walls in alternating pulses of red and blue. For a second, no one moved. Every face caught somewhere between relief and calculation. 2 squad cars skidded to a stop at the mouth of the alley. Doors opened, and uniformed officers stepped out, hands near their holsters but not yet drawn. Haley lowered the pistol just enough to look composed, sliding it behind her back. "Officers," she called, voice sweet as syrup. "Thank God you're here. My father's become difficult." Luna's smirk returned instantly, like she'd just been handed a better set of cards. One officer, a tall man with a weathered face, glanced over the scene, the SUV, the scattered papers, the crowbar on the ground. "Somebody want to tell me what's going on?" I stepped forward, holding up the plastic sleeve. "This is what's going on. A binding document that says they can't sell the union fund without a member vote. They're trying to forge it." Haley laughed softly. "He's confused. That letter is outdated, superseded by new bylaws. He's clinging to the past. Superseded without a vote?" I shot back. The officer's eyes narrowed, clearly not sure which side to believe. Nicholas jabbed a finger toward the briefcase man. "That's not a member. That's corporate muscle. You want to see IDs?" The driver of the second squad car stepped closer, a younger cop with sharp eyes. "IDs, all of you. Now." Reluctantly, everyone began producing wallets. Luna moved with the unbothered grace of someone who knew she'd pass any casual inspection. Max leaned toward me and whispered, "We need to get that letter somewhere safe before they start asking who owns it." Violet was scanning the officers' faces. Her expression shifted, something like alarm. "That tall one," she murmured. "I've seen him in the hall before, talking to Haley." My stomach tightened. If she was right, one of these cops wasn't neutral. The tall officer walked over, palm out. "Let me see that document, sir, just to verify what you're claiming." I didn't hand it over. You can read it right here." His polite smile didn't reach his eyes. "I insist." Nicholas stepped between us. "Not happening. This stays in Union hands." The officer's hand dropped his belt, slow, deliberate, and in that tense silence, the younger cop's radio crackled a message that made my blood run cold. "Unit 3. We secured the building. All interior files have been collected for transfer." For a heartbeat, I thought I'd misheard the radio. "All interior files collected for transfer." Max muttered a curse. Nicholas's hands curled into fists. Violet's face went pale. Luna's smirk deepened. "Looks like my team is more efficient than I thought." I turned on the tall officer. "You let them in the hall? Without a warrant?" He gave a small shrug, the kind that said he didn't care what was legal, only what was convenient. "Union property, union dispute. Just making sure nothing gets misplaced before it's reviewed." "That's not review, that's theft." Nicholas snapped. Haley's voice was calm, almost condescending. "Dad, this is over. The documents are gone. The vote's set. You can't stop progress." But she was wrong. The 1998 side letter in my hand was still the one piece that could blow their deal apart, if I could get it into the right hands before they buried it under forged signatures. The younger cop's eyes flicked toward me, then toward the tall officer, and I caught the smallest shake of his head. A warning. I made a decision. "Nick, Max, time to leave." The tall officer stepped to block us. "Not yet." From behind him, the briefcase man reached out, quick as a snake, trying to grab the sleeve from my hand. I twisted away, but the plastic tore with a sickening rip. The letter fluttered loose, and for a split second, the alley erupted into motion, Max lunging for it, Tyler trying to snatch it midair, Violet screaming something I couldn't hear over the scuffle. Somehow, Nicholas scooped it up and stuffed it inside his jacket. "Go!" he barked. We bolted toward the far end of the alley, the sound of boots pounding after us. The younger cop didn't follow. He just turned, blocking the tall officer's line of sight. For a precious moment, we rounded the corner onto Main Street, weaving between parked cars. My lungs burned, but we didn't slow until we hit the narrow gap behind the diner. Nicholas leaned against the wall, panting, the letter still inside his jacket. "We've got it, but they've got everything else. And if it forged those files," I said, "we're outnumbered Monday before we even speak." Max glanced toward the diner's back door. "We can hide in here, figure our next move." A sudden flash of headlights cut him off. A third black SUV pulled up, blocking the alley exit. The back door swung open, and stepping out, calm as if she owned the whole street, was Luna, holding a lighter in one hand and a small metal gasoline can in the other. The metallic clink of the gasoline can hitting the pavement was louder than it should have been. Luna let it rest by her side, the lighter turning lazily between her fingers like she had all the time in the world. "Paper burns fast," she said, voice smooth and steady. "And without that letter, there's nothing left to stop me." Nicholas stepped forward, chest heaving. "You torch it here, half the block will see. You'll have cops, real ones, here in minutes." She smiled faintly. "By then it will be ashes, and ashes don't testify." Max shifted the crowbar in his grip, eyes darting to me for a cue. I shook my head. A fight here now would turn into a disaster in seconds, and Luna knew it. Behind us, the alley's brick walls pressed close. The SUV blocked one end, the diner's locked back doors sealed the other. Violet was already scanning for any exit, but there wasn't one. "You've got two options, Brandon," Luna continued. "Hand me the letter and walk away breathing, or watch it go up in smoke." Nicholas's hand went to his jacket, where the letter was hidden. "You'll have to take it." Her eyes hardened. "That can be arranged." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed from Main Street, measured, deliberate. Then Haley appeared from around the corner. Tyler stepped behind her, both looking far too pleased with themselves. "Mom always said you were too stubborn for your own good," Haley said, eyes locking on me. I stared at her. "This isn't stubborn. It's survival, for the people you're selling out." She glanced at Luna. "Do it." The lighter flared to life, the orange glow dancing against the dark. Luna's arm extended toward the letter, like an executioner's blade about to fall. That was when the diner's back door swung open with a bang. The smell of fryer oil rushed into the alley, and in the doorway stood Zoe, the treasurer, holding the old Union megaphone in one hand and a thick envelope in the other. "I think you all forgot," she said, her voice cutting through the night. "I keep the real originals." Zoe's words froze everyone in place. The lighter's flame quivered in Luna's hand. Haley's confident mask cracked just enough to show the first glint of panic. "The originals?" Luna's voice was low, dangerous. Zoe stepped fully into the alley, her boots steady on the wet pavement. "Audit backups, notarized copies, 1998 side letter, member rosters, everything you try to disappear. 2 copies, in fact. One's already in the lockbox at First Federal." Luna's smirk faltered. "You think a bank will keep them from me?" "I don't need them to keep them from you," Zoe said. "I just need them to be where 300 angry union members can see them at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning." For the first time, the balance shifted. Max's grip on the crowbar loosened. Nicholas straightened, sensing momentum. Haley's eyes flicked to Tyler, searching for a play that wasn't there. "Officer!" Zoe shouted toward the street. "You wanted proof? Come see for yourself." The younger cop appeared at the alley mouth, weapon holstered but posture sharp. He took the envelope from Zoe and flipped it open. His brows lifted as he scanned the first page. "This is signed, sealed, and still binding." The tall officer stepped forward, scowl deepening. "We'll verify that downtown." The younger one didn't blink. "No, sir, we'll verify it in front of the membership, where it belongs." Luna's gaze iced over. "You're making enemies you don't understand." The younger cop handed the envelope back to Zoe. "Lady, I've been breaking up picket lines since I was 22. I understand exactly who my enemies are." Nicholas grinned despite the tension. "Guess we're in good company." Haley took a slow step toward me, her tone shifting to that soft, persuasive voice she used as a kid. "Dad, please, we can still work together. Let's walk away from this alley and figure out a deal." I looked at her, really looked. Somewhere under the ambition and the greed, she was still my daughter. But I saw the choice she'd made, and I knew nothing I said tonight would change it. "No deal," I said. "Tomorrow, you face the people you're trying to rob." Her lips pressed into a thin line. Tyler muttered something under his breath, but Luna's sharp gesture silenced him. She knew the game was lost, for now. Luna pocketed the lighter, her voice smooth again. "Enjoy your little show, Brandon. But remember, victory speeches can turn into eulogies overnight." They retreated to the SUV, engines roaring as the convoy pulled away. The tall officer followed, but not before giving me a look that promised this wasn't over. When the alley finally went quiet, Zoe exhaled. "Thought you could use a hand." "You just saved the Union," I said, and meant it. Labor Day morning. The park was already buzzing when we arrived. Grills smoked. Kids ran on a splash pad, and a low hum of conversation filled the air. But when Zoe stepped onto stage with that thick envelope in her hands, the hum died into silence. I took to my brothers, sisters. 30 years ago, we built a fund to protect our own. Someone has sold out from under you. Today, you get to decide if that happens. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I read Clause 7 of the 1998 side letter aloud, every word echoing through the speakers. When I finished, Zoe held the originals high for everyone to see. Haley and Tyler stood at the edge of the crowd, stiff as fence posts. Luna was nowhere in sight, but I knew she'd hear soon enough. Those in favor of protecting the fund. I called, "Raise your hands." A sea of hands shot into the air. The vote wasn't just 2/3, it was unanimous. Nicholas clapped me on the back. Max lifted the megaphone in triumph. Zoe gave me the smallest, proudest nod. When it was over, people drifted back to grills and games, laughter rolling across the park. The fund was safe. The hall was ours. And whatever came next, they'd have to face a union that remembered exactly who it was. Haley met my eyes once before she left. No words, just a look I couldn't read. Maybe anger, maybe regret. As the sun dropped behind the oaks, Nicholas handed me a cold Union-made soda. Think they'll try again? Probably. I said, watching kids race across the grass. But so will we. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt light. We'd built this, and we were keeping it. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.